The Vorax stood alone in the observation deck, his gaze fixed on the distant planet. His sharp, angular features betrayed no emotion, but inside, a storm raged. The humans had caught his attention, more so than any other species the Zoranti had encountered. They were an anomaly. A species of violent tendencies, unwavering ambition, and an unpredictable nature. And yet, the Zoranti Council refused to believe it. Humanity's rapid evolution was both astonishing and terrifying. Their wars had shaped their world, but their technology had begun to surpass even the Zoranti's expectations. The humans were developing weapons that could breach entire star systems with ease. Their warships, once primitive in design, were now equipped with quantum drives, capable of piercing space itself, enabling them to strike before anyone had a chance to react. The had been assigned to monitor humanity's progression. He was a battle-hardened commander, trained in the art of war, but more importantly, he was a diplomat. His task was to keep peace, to prevent conflict. But with the humans, peace seemed to be a fleeting dream. A dangerous one, at that. "Commander Vorax," a voice called out behind him, breaking his thoughts. The turned to face his superior, Dranar, a respected member of the council. His presence was always unsettling to the Dranar was a figure of diplomacy, someone who believed in the power of negotiation, even in the face of clear threat. "You've been observing Earth for hours. What have you learned?" Dranar asked, his tone casual. Thalai's jaw tightened. "They're too dangerous. Their wars have taught them the art of destruction, but they've also honed an unmatched drive for control. And they're expanding their reach. Faster than we can comprehend." Dranar's expression remained unchanged. "You've seen their weapons, yes? But you must understand, humans are still primitive. They can't even comprehend the consequences of their own actions. They fight because they believe it's the only way to survive." "That's precisely it," the replied, his voice growing colder. "Survival is their justification for everything. But they've mastered weapons that can alter the course of entire galaxies. They don't care about consequences. They act first and think later." Dranar leaned in, eyes narrowing. "Your reports are becoming increasingly alarmist. These are just isolated incidents, the extremists within their ranks. We can manage them." "No, you don't understand," the said, his frustration mounting. "There's something more insidious at play here. The Crimson Dawn faction is only the beginning. They're preparing something far worse. If we don't act now, we'll regret it." The Council had received reports from various neutral systems, warnings about the growing threat from Earth. A series of violent attacks on distant colonies had left entire star systems in ruin. But the Council dismissed it as human error, the act of a few rogue factions. They didn't see the bigger picture, humanity's drive to expand, to conquer, to push beyond their limits. "We have sent them warnings," the Dranar said, turning toward the viewport. "And still, they continue to ignore us. The Council believes in diplomacy. The humans need time to evolve. You cannot rush such a process." "I've seen their timeline," the said, his voice tinged with urgency. "They won't evolve at the pace we expect. They're learning too quickly. Their next move could shatter everything we've worked for." Dranar shook his head, disappointment clear in his features. "Your concerns are noted, but the Council has made its decision. Humanity will be monitored, but not intervened with. We will remain patient." The felt his blood boil. The Council, in its infinite wisdom, was blind to the obvious threat. They were all going to die for their stubbornness. "You are making a mistake," the muttered under his breath. He turned his back on Dranar and left the observation deck, his mind racing. The following days passed in a haze. The tried to keep his thoughts focused, but he could not shake the image of humanity's rise. He spent hours scouring data, analyzing patterns, looking for signs of their growing power. And they were everywhere. The humans were developing new weapons. A new class of warships had been built, equipped with hypervelocity cannons capable of incinerating entire fleets in seconds. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the quantum weaponry they had recently stolen from a derelict alien vessel. The Lie knew this weapon could tear through the very fabric of space-time, collapsing stars and entire systems. The thought of humans possessing such a force made his stomach churn. If the Zeranti Empire wasn't careful, the humans would soon become the most feared species in the galaxy. And so, the Lie took matters into his own hands. He knew that the Council would never act, not unless a catastrophe unfolded before them. And by then, it might be too late. He couldn't wait for their inaction to seal the fate of the galaxy. The Lie contacted a few trusted individuals, warriors from other species who shared his concerns. They understood the importance of preemptive action. He formed a small, covert team, one that would infiltrate Earth's solar system and stop humanity before their weapons grew any more dangerous. The plan was simple. Disrupt their weapons development, destroy their warships, and disable their quantum weaponry. But even as the Lie prepared to take this step, he could not shake the feeling that humanity was not just dangerous, they were something else entirely. They were unstoppable. The first move came swiftly. The Lie and his team infiltrated Earth's orbit under the cover of darkness. Their stealth technology was unmatched, allowing them to slip past the human defenses without a trace. As they approached their target, a massive human warship, Thalai's heart raced. The ship was unlike anything the humans had ever constructed before, sleek, dangerous, and brimming with weaponry. But as they closed in on their target, something unexpected happened. A sudden jolt shook their ship, and Thalai's console flashed a warning, infiltration detected. Damn it! The Lie cursed under his breath. They found us. The humans had been monitoring their solar system more closely than the Lie anticipated. His team was caught in a web of security systems that had been designed specifically to neutralize threats like theirs. Brace for impact. The Lie ordered, as enemy ships swarmed around them. A volley of plasma fire erupted from the human vessels, streaking across the darkness of space toward Thalai's ship. He gritted his teeth and fought to maintain control, weaving through the incoming blasts. But the humans weren't just responding to an attack. They were hunting. They know we're here, the Lie said, realization dawning. We've been tracked. Someone tipped them off. Before he could say anything else, the ship shuddered violently, and the comms system flickered to life. A voice came through, distorted but unmistakable. "This is Zane Caldwell," the voice crackled. "Commander Vorax. You've made a grave mistake. You've come to kill us? Or have you come to face the true power of humanity?" Thalai's heart skipped a beat. The voice was cold, calculating. And it sent a chill down his spine. He had underestimated humanity. The game had just changed. Thalai's heart raced as the human fleet closed in. The tactical data he had gathered had warned him of humanity's growing military capabilities, but nothing had prepared him for this, a precise, coordinated response that seemed too calculated for a species still seen as primitive by the Zeranti Empire. He gripped the armrests of his seat, the control panels flashing urgent alerts around him. The enemy ships were closing in, weapons primed. "Target locked," one of his operatives, Zori, said calmly, though her voice carried a hint of concern. "Their defenses are strong. It's going to be difficult to breach their shield." "Don't worry about their shields," the Lie muttered, keeping his focus on the tactical readouts. "We have a bigger problem." Zane Caldwell's voice crackled through the comms once more, calm and composed, like a predator preparing to strike. "We've been waiting for you, the Lie. Did you think you could slip into our solar system unnoticed? You've underestimated us again." Thalai's mind raced. Zane Caldwell, leader of the Titan Brotherhood. Humanity's most dangerous faction. This wasn't just an ordinary mission anymore. The Titans had anticipated their every move. And that meant they were far more advanced than anyone, even the Lie, had realized. "We need to get out of here, now," the Lie said, his voice urgent. "Zori, power up the quantum drive. Get us out of their firing range." The ship shuddered as Zori adjusted the ship's energy systems. But the human fleet was relentless, surrounding them from all sides. No escape route. No chance to retreat. I don't think that will be possible, Zane's voice came through the comm again, with an edge of satisfaction. You're far too valuable to let go now. The ship lurched as a barrage of plasma fire erupted, striking the hull with enough force to rattle the crew. The shields flickered but held. For now, can you trace their quantum signature? Delay asked, his voice clipped with growing frustration. Already on it, Zora responded. But I'm detecting a major fluctuation in their energy field. Something's off. It's like wait. Before she could finish, the ship shuddered once more, this time with an unnatural force. A deep, vibrating hum ran through the walls, and Delay felt it in his bones. Damn it! Zori cursed. They're manipulating the space-time continuum. We're locked in a gravity well. It's as if they've bent reality. Thalay's mind flashed back to everything he'd read about the Titan Brotherhood, how they had found alien technology capable of distorting reality itself, bending space, time, and even the laws of physics. Humanity had unlocked the very fabric of the universe. They've trapped us, Thalay realized, gritting his teeth. We can't escape. We're sitting ducks. Zora's voice was strained, working desperately at the controls. I can't break the field, Thalay. I'm trying, but their tech, it's too advanced. Whatever this is, it's not something we've ever encountered before. The human ships continued to close in, their weapons now dangerously close. Thalay's options were narrowing, and each passing moment felt like a countdown. Every instinct he had as a commander screamed at him to fight, to break free and take the fight to them. But he knew better than anyone that this wasn't just a simple battle. Humanity had already shown their power. Zane, I didn't come here to die, Thalay called out into the comms. If you want to fight, then you've got one. But you'll regret this. There was a pause. Then Zane's voice, smooth and unbothered. You think this is about a fight, Thalay? You think this is a war? Thalay's grip tightened on the console. What else is it about, then? Power, Zane said, a cold amusement in his tone. You see, you've underestimated us in every possible way. The Titan Brotherhood isn't just about weapons or military strength. We're about domination. Control. The galaxy is nothing more than a stepping stone for us. And you, Thalay? You're just another obstacle to clear. Thalay's anger flared. You're a fool if you think you can control the galaxy. You're playing a dangerous game, and one day, it'll come back to bite you. Zane's laughter echoed through the comms. It already has. And you've just signed your own death warrant. You never understood humanity. We don't care about survival. We care about winning. Suddenly, the ship's hull buckled under another series of blasts, more intense than before. The lights flickered. Thalay could hear the alarms wailing in the background. We're losing power. Zori shouted. The core's overheating. Thalay's mind raced. He had no choice now but to fight back. He could feel his pulse quickening, but there was no fear, only the cold certainty that he had to make a move. Prepare for evasive maneuvers, Thalay commanded, his voice steady, even as panic crept into the edges of his thoughts. Zori, override their gravity well. We need to get out of here now. Zori worked furiously at the controls, sweat beading on her forehead. I'm trying, but their frequency is locking us down. Do it, now! Thalay shouted. The ship shuddered again, but this time, it was different. There was a shift in the space around them, a sudden, violent release of energy. The space-time distortion flickered for a moment, and then it was gone. The ship lurched forward, breaking free of the gravity well, but not without a cost. The ship's hull groaned under the strain, and sparks flew from the panels. We're free, Zori breathed in disbelief. But the drive is compromised. We won't get far before it fails. Thalay exhaled, but there was no time to celebrate. The human fleet wasn't backing down. They were right on their tail. Hold steady, Thalay ordered, eyes narrowed as the human fleet closed in once more. We have one shot at this. But as the seconds ticked by, the Lie felt something shift. His mind raced through possibilities, through countless strategies that could save them. The humans were relentless, there was no way they could outrun them. But maybe, just maybe, there was another way to turn the tide. Zori, can you reroute power to the warp generator? Overload it. Give us one final burst of speed. Zora's eyes widened. You're insane, the Lie. That'll tear us apart. We don't have a choice, the Lie said, locking eyes with her. Do it. Zori hesitated for only a second before nodding and moving to the appropriate controls. She began working quickly, tapping at the console, her hands moving faster than the Lie had ever seen. As the power surged, the Lie braced himself. This was their last chance. The ship lurched again, this time more violently. The hum of the engines intensified as the warp drive came online, pulling them forward at impossible speeds. But it wasn't fast enough. The human fleet was right behind them. The Lie cursed under his breath. The odds were stacked against them. But one thing was certain, he would never back down. Not from this fight. Not from humanity. The tension continues to mount as the Lie and his team fight desperately to break free from the human fleet. With the threat closing in, the choices they make now will determine whether they can escape or face their doom. The hum of the engines reverberated through Thalai's body as his ship hurtled through space, every second ticking by like a countdown. The human fleet, despite their best efforts, could not close the gap fast enough. Zora's brilliant modifications to the ship's power core were holding for now, but it was clear they couldn't keep it up for long. The ship was trembling under the stress, its hull groaning with each burst of speed. We're still too slow, the Lie muttered, frustration mounting in his chest. He gripped the console, eyes darting between the readouts. They'll catch up before we can find an escape route. We've pushed the core to its limits, Zora responded, her voice tight with strain. If we keep this up, the engine will collapse. The Lie didn't need to hear more. He had one goal now, survival. His mind raced through options, but each one seemed impossible. He needed to think like a human. What would they do? They never stopped. They didn't care about the odds. They fought for control, for power. And they thrived in chaos. Are you ready to fight? The Lie turned toward the rest of his crew, his tone hardening. I won't go down without a fight. Zori exchanged a look with their weapons officer, Krau, a burly alien from a species known for their endurance. Krau nodded grimly, his eyes reflecting the gravity of the situation. We're ready, Krau said. Let's show them that they've underestimated us. The Lie gave a curt nod and turned back to the forward viewport. The human ships were closing in fast. His thoughts flickered to the voice that had haunted him since their first encounter, the cold, calculated voice of Zane Caldwell. Don't get distracted, Zora warned, her fingers flying over the controls. They've sent a recon ship ahead. It's too late to avoid them now. Thalai's jaw clenched. He could feel the pressure mounting. He couldn't outrun them, and they were running out of options. But what if they didn't need to run? We fight, the Lie decided, his voice unwavering. Prepare for a counterattack. Full weapon systems, fire when ready. Zori hesitated only for a moment, her hand hovering over the console. Are you sure this is the best move? We can't win this, we don't need to win, the Lie cut in. We need to make them fear us. Zora nodded, understanding now. She activated the weapon systems, and the ship hummed with power. The Lie felt his pulse quicken as he prepared for the next phase of the battle. The first volley of plasma fire came from the human ships, lighting up the vast expanse of space. Thalai's crew returned fire with precision, their weapons striking the human ships with deadly accuracy. But as the Lie had expected, the humans were relentless. They adapted. They countered. Zane's voice rang through the comm again, louder now, almost mocking. You think you can stop us? You think you're the only ones who know how to fight? Thalai's grip on the console tightened. We're not stopping. We're just getting started. Zora's hands flew across the control panel, rerouting power to the shields. I'm boosting the energy, but it won't hold forever. They're outmatching us. Thalai's eyes narrowed. He could feel the ship creaking under the strain, but there was no retreat. There was no surrender. Not while humanity stood in the way of peace. Zane, listen to me. Thalai called through the comms. You've made a mistake. This doesn't have to end in destruction. For a moment, there was silence. Then Zane's voice, calm as ever, cut through. No, Thalai. The mistake was yours. You don't understand. Humanity doesn't need peace. We need to take what's ours. And if you're in the way, then you'll be destroyed. Thalai shook his head, his resolve hardening. This isn't a fight for control. It's a fight for survival. And I'm not backing down. Zori and Krau continued their work, each working in sync as the ship rattled under the barrage of fire. Thalai knew they couldn't hold out much longer. But in that moment, something shifted. His instincts screamed at him, this was it. The moment that would define everything. The ship's sensors flared with a new reading, a massive energy surge coming from one of the human ships. Thalai's eyes widened. They were preparing something worse than before. Zori, we need to disable their power core now. Thalai barked. I'm trying. Zora replied, panic creeping into her voice. They're too well fortified. We can't get through their shields in time. Thalai's mind raced. There was only one thing left to do. Bring us closer, he ordered. We go in, now. The ship lurched as Zori fought to redirect the controls. The human ships loomed large now, close enough that Thalai could see their weapons primed for the final strike. Every instinct told him to retreat, to preserve what little strength they had left. But Thalai had no choice. He had to take the fight to them. He turned to Krau. Are you ready for this? Krau's grin was fierce. Always. Thalai locked eyes with Zori. Get us in range. Now. The ship darted forward with surprising speed, closing the gap faster than Zori had thought possible. The human ships opened fire, their plasma blasts lighting up the blackness of space. But the ship held steady, maneuvering with precision as they glided toward their target. Zora's voice trembled as she shouted, Thalai. We're too close to their weapons range, I said now, Thalai snapped. If we don't do this, we're all dead anyway. Zori hesitated only for a moment before complying. She activated the secondary weapons array, unleashing a barrage of concentrated fire directly at the human ship's power core. The energy field around the ship flickered, and for a brief moment, Thalai saw the panic in the eyes of the human officers. Target the weak point. Thalai shouted. Full power to the breach. Zora's hands worked furiously, rerouting every available ounce of power to the ship's core systems. The ship groaned under the strain, but they were too close to stop now. The final volley hit the human ship's central reactor. The explosion that followed sent shockwaves through the vacuum of space, illuminating the dark void with a brilliant flash of light. For a moment, everything went still. The ship was caught in the aftermath of the explosion, rocked by the shockwave. Thalai gritted his teeth, trying to maintain control as the ship struggled to stay intact. Status report. Thalai barked, his voice strained. We've disabled their primary weapons. Zori called back. But their fleet is still intact. We've only delayed them. Thalai's mind raced, but there was no time for doubt. The battle wasn't over. It had only just begun. He turned to Krau, who was already preparing for the next phase. We push forward, Thalai said, his voice cold with determination. We show them the cost of underestimating us. Krau nodded, and Thalai braced himself for the inevitable next round of combat. Humanity had made its move, and now, it was his turn. He would ensure that the galaxy understood one thing: humanity may be dangerous, but so were they. The explosion echoed through space, sending ripples across the fabric of reality. Thalai's ship shook violently, but it held together. He had no time to admire the damage they'd inflicted. Humanity wasn't going to back down that easily. Zane Caldwell wouldn't let them. Report. Delay barked, his voice tight with urgency. The crew was moving fast, but they couldn't afford another misstep. Zora's voice came through, breathless. We've crippled their main weapons, but the fleet is still operational. Their ships are shifting course, heading straight for us. Delay nodded grimly. He'd expected this. Zane wasn't someone who could be easily defeated. Humanity had a way of clawing back, of never letting go of what they wanted. And right now, they wanted control. They wanted to destroy anyone who stood in their way. Prepare for impact, Delay ordered. Zori, reroute all power to the shields. Kral, get ready for the final assault. Kral's deep voice rumbled in reply. Understood. Let's end this. The ship groaned under the pressure as Zori worked furiously, rerouting energy to the shield generators. The human ships were closing in, their weapons glowing brighter with each passing second. It wouldn't be long before they were within striking distance again. Thalay's mind raced, each second feeling like an eternity. As the seconds ticked by, the tension was unbearable. The crew was working in perfect sync, but they all knew this was their last stand. Humanity wouldn't stop. They had no choice but to face them head-on. Zane's voice crackled over the comm once again, calm and calculating. You think you can stop us, Delay? Your fleet is broken. Your people are weak. This is the end for you. Thalay's jaw clenched. His fingers curled into fists at his sides. Zane had already written them off. Humanity had always believed in domination, in proving that they were the strongest. But Delay refused to let that belief dictate the galaxy's future. He wasn't going to lose to this arrogance. Not today, Delay growled, more to himself than anyone else. The human fleet was almost upon them now. Delay could see the ships clearly on the radar, their weapons primed and ready to strike. The shields were holding for now, but their integrity was quickly weakening. Zori, we need more power. I want everything we've got. Thalay's voice was hard, demanding. Push the core to its limits. Zori hesitated for a moment, her eyes flicking to the power readouts. Delay, we're running out of time. If we push any further, the core will breach. We won't survive. Thalay's gaze was unwavering as he looked at the human fleet on the screen. He knew the risks. He understood what it meant. But there was no choice. He turned back to her, his voice firm. We either push forward, or we die here. Do it. Now. Zora's fingers flew over the controls, rerouting power to the engines and shields. The ship hummed louder as it absorbed every last ounce of energy, the strain visible in every part of the vessel. The tension was palpable. Power levels at maximum, Zora reported, her voice tinged with fear. We're at the breaking point. Thalay's mind cleared as he focused on the task ahead. The ship lurched forward, the forward guns charging. It was time to make their move. Fire! Delay ordered, his voice cold and decisive. The ship unleashed a barrage of plasma fire that erupted into the darkness, streaking across the void toward the human fleet. It wasn't enough to cripple them, but it sent a clear message: they were not done fighting. Again! Delay shouted. More blasts followed, hitting the human ships with pinpoint accuracy. But the humans didn't flinch. They retaliated almost immediately, launching their own salvo of energy blasts. The impact sent tremors through the ship, shaking it to its core. Shields at 30%, Zora called out, panic creeping into her voice. We can't take another hit like that. Thalay's heart raced as he watched the readouts. His crew was on the brink of collapse. And the human fleet? It was closing in fast, their ships ready to fire. No more dodging, Delay muttered under his breath. Zori, get us in closer. Full speed. Zora looked at him with wide eyes. Are you crazy? They'll tear us apart if we get any closer. Delay didn't hesitate. Do it. Now. With no other choice, Zori obeyed. The ship rocketed forward, weaving between the human vessels as they fired relentlessly. The sheer force of the blasts rocked the ship from every side, but it held. The power surge the Lie had ordered earlier gave them the edge they needed, allowing them to get within striking range. And then, just as the Lie had planned, they made their move. "Fire everything," the Lie ordered, his voice deadly calm. The ship unleashed everything it had. Every weapon, every ounce of energy they had left, was directed toward the human fleet. The sheer volume of firepower overwhelmed the human defenses, the blasts tearing through their shields, hitting their engines, their weapons, their core systems. The human ships were torn apart, one after another. Zane Caldwell's voice crackled over the comm again, but this time, there was panic in his tone. "No! Stop! You can't!" But it was too late. The human fleet, once so powerful and unyielding, was now in disarray. Explosions erupted from within, and within moments, their ships were nothing more than debris floating in the void. Thalai's breath was heavy, his mind still racing, but he couldn't afford to savor the victory. They had only won a battle. The war wasn't over. He looked at Zori and Crow, their faces reflecting the same realization. "We've got to move," the Lie said, his voice harsh but focused. "Before they send reinforcements." Zora nodded, quickly working to bring the ship back online. "We're damaged," the Lie. "I can't guarantee we'll make it out of here." "Make it happen," the Lie said firmly. "We'll fight again if we have to." The ship shuddered, and the engines hummed back to life. They were on the move again, but the danger wasn't over. The Lie knew that Zane Caldwell would not give up easily. Humanity never did. As they broke free from the wreckage of the battle, the Lie stood silent for a moment, his eyes scanning the blackness of space. The quiet after the chaos was almost suffocating. But one thing was certain, humanity had been stopped, but they were not finished. They had only just begun to show their true power. And the Lie? He would be ready for them when they came again. For now, though, they had one.